Boris Chung, welcome to Conflict Zone.
Yeah, thank you.
Last year, the Beijing government made it crystal clear that it no longer feels bound by the joint declaration it signed with Britain in 1984. Why didn't you stand up for the rights of the people of Hong Kong when they said that?
I think that the official position is that after signing the joint declaration, Hong Kong has been returned to China, and then the Hong Kong affairs will become the internal affairs of our home country.
Yeah, but there's a binding international agreement which China signed. And these rights and freedoms are supposed to be respected for at least 50 years.
Yeah, sure.
That was written down. This is an accord which was registered with the United Nations. So why tear it up and why allow it to be torn up?
No, actually, all such kind of rights have been protected in Hong Kong. As you can see, everyone in Hong Kong now enjoy the freedom of speech, but certainly...
Much less than they used to, but we'll get on to that. Much less.
No, I think there would be some misunderstanding in the international community. Actually, everyone in Hong Kong, you can say anything in Hong Kong.
You talk to journalists here. You talk to the Journalists Association of Hong Kong, and presumably you read their reports. So you see how much concern they have about free speech in this city here.
I think as a person living in Hong Kong, I have the right to say that I enjoy all rights of freedom to speech in Hong Kong, and certainly under the legal system, everyone, when you enjoy the freedom of speech, you must have some limitation. For example, you cannot make defamatory statements against anyone else. That is the north in Hong Kong.
I want to come back and talk about free speech in more detail, but let's look back at what Lu Kang, the spokesman of the Chinese Foreign Ministry, said last year. He said the Sino-British Joint Declaration no longer had any practical significance and was not at all binding for the central government's management over Hong Kong. That was an outrageous statement about a binding international agreement, wasn't it? But you stayed silent about this.
I think that statement relates to what happened after 1997, as I said before.
Yes, and that was what the agreement was directed at. What happens after 1997? After
1997, certainly our home country, they still respect the basic law in Hong Kong, and actually...
but they're saying here they don't. They're saying that it no longer has any practical significance.
No, you must to look at it quite fairly. You will look at actually our home country, the China. Actually, they respect the basic law, and now
they say they do. They say they do, but it's just a slogan.
No, because as a lawyer in Hong Kong, I can say that in Hong Kong now, we all of us respect the basic law. We obey the basic law. And we hope that we can still work under the existing legal system, and so that we can enjoy the one country, two systems. That is quite important to Hong Kong.
It's becoming a slogan, isn't it? One country, two systems. It's more and more one country, one system. And I want to draw your attention to what a senior Chinese official, Li Fei, said in November. Hong Kong is obliged to respect the Constitution of the People's Republic of China, uphold the constitutional order, and safeguard national unity. In other words, forget about your basic law. This is the document that is much more important now.
As a part and parcel of China, certainly Hong Kong, we must respect the constitution of the PRC. Just like Germany, everyone in Germany, you must respect your constitution. It's the same case in Hong Kong.
You've got a constitution and basic law, and in places they're at odds with each other.
You must know the unique legal system in Hong Kong. Actually, basic law is a law that is passed by the People's Congress of China. So actually, the basic law is under the constitutional law of the PRC.
And interpreted by the People's Republic of China as well.
That is the existing legal system in PRC.
It remains
unchanged.
I want to look at the public intimidation of a law professor that occurred earlier this year. In April, Professor Benny Tai, an expert in constitutional law, became the object of a massive denunciation campaign by Chinese and Hong Kong officials. After he gave a lecture, he was talking about independence for Hong Kong. And he was variously described as a threat to China's national security, who must be crushed, said one commentary, with a sledgehammer. Do you want to see Benny Tai crushed with a sledgehammer? Is that what you want?
I can say Professor Benny Tai, certainly he enjoyed his rights of speech in Hong Kong, but he must obey the law in Hong Kong. He should not promote anything about independence in Hong Kong that is contrary to the laws of Hong Kong, is contrary
Advocating
to the
independence is not against the law. Advocating independence is not against the law. He's a constitutional law expert. He should know.
He is a legal scholar, but it doesn't mean that his opinion must be right.
You didn't answer the question when I asked you whether he should be smashed with a sledgehammer.
I would say that if you promulgate any independence in Hong Kong that is contrary to the laws of Hong Kong, it's also contrary to the interests of Hong Kong people.
If it was against the law, he would have been arrested and arraigned in court. You know that. He wasn't. Instead, they chose to denounce him because it wasn't against the law.
And actually now
you refuse to answer my question about whether he should be smashed with a sledgehammer. I'm asking you, yes or no?
Yeah, that is the loophole in Hong Kong about the Article 23 under the Basic Law.
I want to come back to that question. Should he be smashed with a sledgehammer or not?
It's interrelated to Article 23
Should he be smashed with a sledgehammer, as recommended by the People's Daily, the mouthpiece of the Communist Party in China? Should he be smashed with a sledgehammer?
I would say that he must obey and respect the laws of Hong Kong.
You're not going to answer this question, are you? Why? Are you afraid of upsetting China?
No.
You can't give me a straight answer to a straight question, can you? About whether he should be smashed with a sledgehammer, as recommended by the People's Daily in Beijing.
I think he should be criticized by Hong Kong people.
Is the Chinese state so weak and fragile that a constitutional law expert who talks about independence is a threat to a country of 1.4 billion people? Come on, really? A threat? Are they so fragile, so insecure in Beijing these days?
No. Look, I think as a legal professor, he must fully understand that we should not promote independence in Hong Kong. It's not allowed under the law.
Who says? Who says you shouldn't?
It's under the...
Who says you shouldn't?
No.
China.
Under the Basic Law, it says that we are a party impartial of the People's Republic of China.
Under the Basic Law, it also says he has free speech and freedom of association.
And freedom of speech has a limitation. That is
decided by China.
You must obey in compliance with the Basic Law and respect one country, two systems. And you should not seek any movement for independence in Hong Kong.
What makes you so afraid of it? Is it because China is breathing down your neck
It's not
over this?
a matter of what you say.
Almost nobody supports independence in Hong Kong. You know this as well as I do. We have a 1.4 billion nation next door, China, and they're afraid of a few people in Hong Kong.
It's about rights and
who talk about independence.
You should not do something unlawful, and you should not do something wrong. It's not about how many people support your idea.
It isn't. I'm really surprised about this because, you know, you and your party are simply not prepared to fight for what's been agreed in the Basic Law.
About what?
About freedom of speech. We're talking about Benny Tai's freedom of speech. You just want to keep the central government in Beijing happy. This is your aim, isn't it? And hold the door open.
With all respect, I cannot agree with what you say. We support the freedom of speech in Hong Kong. But as I said, every right has a limitation. When you enjoy your rights to freedom.
Okay, let's look at some other limitations.
You must do something within the legal framework.
Let's look at some other limitations, Mr. Chung. Being excluded from public office because of your political views. In 2016, 6 pro-democracy candidates were disqualified from the election because they backed independence. In March this year, several activists, including the student leader Agnes Chow, were disqualified from running an election because her views weren't to the liking of China. That's a violation of Article 26 of the Basic Law, isn't it? Permanent residents of Hong Kong shall have the right to vote and to stand for election in accordance with the law.
For the eligibility of every candidate running election in Hong Kong, actually we have our own legislation, and under the legal provision, you must meet all these criteria, otherwise you will be disqualified. That
Article 26 doesn't say anything about your political views.
If anyone they disagree with the rules of the administration, we have the legal channel, and you can go to the court to fight for your rights in Hong Kong. You should know that we still have the judicial independence in Hong Kong.
You shouldn't have to fight for this right, Mr. Chung, because it's enshrined in the Basic Law, Article 26.
Yes. If the administration exercises its rights under the laws, certainly you may not agree with that. If that's the case, then you should go to the court to fight for your legal interest. That is our legal system, and I can say it's all along maintained by the Hong Kong people, and it's quite important. And as you know that there are a few candidates that now take their case to the court and challenge the decision of the administration. If they are right, then the court will give them a fair outcome and a fair decision.
Why does China get increasingly paranoid about Hong Kong? We had earlier this year Wang Zhimin, head of the Chinese government's office in Hong Kong, warning that Hong Kong had become a prominent risk to the country's overall security. Little Hong Kong is a prominent risk to big China's security. That's a serious charge. It is also bordering on paranoia, as I said.
In the context of national security, you should know that actually there's actually a loophole in Hong Kong, because we have the obligation to make our own Article 23 for the national security laws in Hong Kong after 1997. But now, it's more than 20 years. Hong Kong, we still have not yet carried out our obligation to have our own national security laws. I think that is a loophole, and you can see from Macau.
But to call you a prominent risk,
their national security legal provision about that.
To call you a prominent risk, aren't you scared for your job?
And you can.
Aren't you scared for your job? You present a prominent risk to China.
Why? Because
to the Beijing
you can see
government.
that
they said so.
Yeah, and you can see that now there are people in Hong Kong. They can promulgate the independence movement in Hong Kong, and we cannot have our national security legislation to regulate such kind of activities. And I don't think that is what we want to exist in Hong Kong.
What you have in Hong Kong is increasing influence from China, who do things like kidnapping booksellers, which they did in 2015. You happy about that as well?
No.
Booksellers that disappear across into mainland China and then denounce their activities and say they promise not to publish fabrications any longer.
Yeah,
you think that's a legal thing that China did?
We heard about that case in Hong Kong, and as you know, that the Hong Kong government has made every investigation about that, and certainly we are quite concerned.
You may have investigated, but you didn't come up with any results.
We are still waiting for the formal results of the administration in Hong Kong.
How long are you going to wait? You know what happened. China kidnapped them and forced one of them, at least, into a denunciation of his previous activities.
Or confirmed. Otherwise, I don't think we can have a fair comment about such case in Hong Kong.
What do you think happened? I mean, they go missing for months, and then they come back and they are there for a day and they say, okay, it's all right, and then they disappear over into the mainland again. And you think this isn't China kidnapping them? Is this the kind of future you want for the people of Hong Kong?
Unless
where they get enforced disappearances?
Unless we know what happened in the case. Otherwise, I don't think we can have a fair comment about that.
You seem determined to spend a lot of time and effort over Andy Chan and his National Party. There was a government outcry over a speech he gave at what was it, the Hong Kong Foreign Correspondents Club just a few days ago. A government spokesman said it was totally unacceptable, again, for someone to advocate independence. I ask you again, if he broke the law, why not arrest him? But you don't. You seek to intimidate him instead.
First, as a executive council member, I don't think I'm now in a good position to comment on every particular case in Hong Kong, because such kind of case, the appeal may go to the executive council. So I will not comment on a particular case in Hong Kong. But I would say that no one should do something harmful to the Hong Kong people. That is quite important.
They're talking about it being a threat to national security. Where exactly is the specific threat to national security in a speech that Andy Chan gave to the Foreign Correspondents Club a few days ago?
I would say that...
how is that a threat to national security?
When someone... I will not comment on this particular case, but if anyone, they encourage other people to seek independence, I don't think it's good to Hong Kong.
You use these vague accusations of violating or harming national security to intimidate people who hold different views. This is the aim. This is what you're doing, isn't it?
No.
Under international law, as Amnesty International pointed out, under international law, the burden of proof is on the government to demonstrate that a real, not just a hypothetical danger exists to national security. You haven't done that with the National Party, and yet your government is planning to ban it.
You need to wait and see how the court decided. I think that the court will give you a fair decision after that. Certainly, people may have different views. Now, you may say that you may support some people in Hong Kong, but other people, they may not agree with that. So the final outcome depends on how the court interprets the laws.
On the National Party, you put a lot of energy into curtailing the rights, or trying to curtail the rights of people who speak about independence. But you have absolutely nothing to say about the repeated and colossal violations of human rights that take place on the mainland. Why is this? Are you simply just concerned with political expedience, not principles? Not principles like rights and freedom? You don't care about that.
Certainly not.
You care about curtailing the rights of somebody who wants to talk about independence.
Certainly not.
It's hypocrisy, isn't it,
in Hong
Boris Chung?
We respect everyone's rights in Hong Kong. Certainly we want to protect all our rights under the basic law. And we hope that Hong Kong and then China and the central government, all of us will respect and keep the basic all our rights.
But the Beijing government clearly doesn't, does it? The Beijing government doesn't respect those rights.
No, if that's the case, Hong Kong cannot work after 1997. And actually, you can see after 1997, Hong Kong remains unchanged, remains the same, and Hong Kong still keep the market quite well after 1997.
Boris Chung,
it's not an easy task.
In March this year, the most senior human rights officer of the United Nations said his office was monitoring reports in China of arbitrary detentions, enforced disappearances, ill treatment and discrimination directed at human rights defenders, lawyers, legislators, booksellers, and members of communities such as Tibetans and Uyghurs. This is the reality as seen by the United Nations about human rights respect in China today. And you are silent about that. You're not silent about somebody who makes a speech talking about independence here, but you're silent about these massive violations of human rights. That's hypocrisy, isn't it?
No, certainly I would say that I'm someone living in Hong Kong and someone living in PRC. I know what happened in here. And we know that our human rights situation has been improved day day by day. And we certainly hope that we will clarify all the misunderstanding in the international community. And
is this misunderstanding? What's the misunderstanding? It's the violations of human rights we're talking about. We're talking about misunderstanding.
Every country has its own problem when you are talking about rights.
We're talking about China.
Human rights.
We're talking about China. We're not saying that other countries don't have problems.
Even the Western countries, they have problems about human rights.
I'm not saying we don't, but we're talking about China.
Every country
Please don't try and divert it to talking about other countries. We're talking about China.
Every country
You're
has
part
its
of
own
China.
problem. And
you're part of China.
Yeah, certainly. We are trying to improve our community every day, just like other countries.
The latest report by the Hong Kong Journalists Association says that as Hong Kong has become more polarized between pro-Beijing and pro-democracy factions, its media, Hong Kong media, have experienced growing interference by the Chinese authorities. You said earlier you have free speech in Hong Kong. They're saying, and they know what they're talking about because they're in charge of the journalists here, they have their members in all the media, they're saying they're getting increased interference by the Chinese authorities. One of you is not up to speed.
I can say the mass media in Hong Kong, they are quite independent, and I don't think they will be intimidated to avoid doing something in Hong Kong.
According to Reporters Without Borders, China.
But you can see from the mass media in Hong Kong, there are many opinions, even against the Hong Kong government, against the central government. They are still in Hong Kong. That is the real situation.
So Hong Kong in the World Press Freedom Index has gone from 54th place to 73rd over the last 5 years. You proud of that?
The reality is that the mass media in Hong Kong is still quite independent, and they will not be intimidated by any oppression from the Hong Kong administration or the central government. That is the reality that I see in Hong Kong today.
Well, they say they are being intimidated. They're saying they're being threatened. They're saying that journalists are being encouraged to self-censor. And you're saying what? That they just don't know what they're talking about?
You can see from the newspaper every day, there's still much criticism. It's still allowed in Hong Kong.
In 2016, you said that you said you were keen to push Chinese subjects in secondary schools, but especially history. And you said the situation was urgent and it was necessary to make Chinese history compulsory, as every student should be clear about the nation's history. Do you think that Hong Kong's children are going to be clear about Chinese history if they get the same highly censored version of history that exists on the mainland?
When I promote the Chinese history in secondary school, I just put forward the direction in the secondary school. When you are talking about curriculum in the schools, we leave it to the education professional. We don't interfere with the syllabus or the curriculum, and all these things.
You comment on it because Carrie Lam has commented quite a bit on how the handover was seen 20 years ago, 21 years ago. She's commented quite a bit. So you're not divorced from this subject.
We are talking about the Chinese history in the secondary school. We only talk about, we are not talking about the sensitive things in the last decade. That is, if something political in nature, then especially during the last 10 years, we still not yet have conclusion about that. Certainly, it's not in the syllabus of the Chinese history. But as I said before, we would not interfere with the syllabus and the curriculum.
We had Jiang Zemin from the central government's liaison office in Hong Kong. He said he wants people to dwell on not on the unfortunate historical events, but on China's successes. He said it's time to change biases against the Communist Party and the Chinese government and objectively and comprehensively learn about the motherland and its constitutional system. So he wants history taught about the good things that happened to China.
When we are talking about the syllabus and curriculum in the schools, actually it's decided by a professional committee which is composed of education professional only. There are no politicians in this committee.
Tell me this, Mr. Chung. Do you think that Hong Kong children in the next 10 years are going to learn about what happened in the Cultural Revolution, the 1.7 million people who are killed? Are they going to learn about the massacres that took place in Beijing in 1989? Are they going to learn about that in their history books? Because they don't in mainland China, do they? They don't.
To the hands of the education professionals.
Oh, so you wash your hands. You couldn't care less, could you?
As a politician,
you couldn't care less. As a politician, you're avoiding the subject.
Education professional. That is the matter of education. As a politician, we should not interfere with that.
You're washing your hands of it, but the fact is they're going to be taught history with big holes in it. They're going to be taught history that is a PR presentation of how well China has done over the last 100 years and before.
You must trust the teachers in Hong Kong.
And the education board that tells them what to do?
Really? And the educational board, actually, as I said, the committee is composed of education professional only.
Yeah, with China telling them exactly where their loyalties lie for the future.
Unless you have the evidence, otherwise I don't think it's a fair comment about that.
All right. Horace Chung, thank you very much for being on Conflict Zone. Thank you.